Okay, welcome to the section on how to navigate that first meeting. And this is really for people that are more in the speculative early stages of business development relationships. So they might not necessarily know exactly how a relationship is going to look with partners, but they know they want to work with them to drive growth for their company. So let's start by going over first meeting logistics and how to do this appropriately. Typically, a first meeting should be a phone call with a screen share. Now you might be saying, why not have an in-person meeting? Well, there's a few reasons. One, it could potentially be inefficient. If this person has no likelihood of working with you, you traveling to their office, back from their office, that just takes up a lot of time. And remember, time is a startup's most valuable asset. Number two, if you ask for an in-person meeting, that's a higher commitment than a phone call. And somebody may not be as likely to take a meeting with you if you ask for an in-person versus a simple phone call that you can talk about your startup and even show them via a screen share. Remember, this is early on in the process, so that in-person ask might be a little much. So once you've gotten over email the desire from the other party to connect for a meeting, what you want to do is figure out the time that they want to connect and send them a calendar invite. Now, when you send the calendar invite, you want to always make sure that it's from your company email address. Ask them the best number to reach them at and include that. Don't make them call you. You're the one that's asking for their time, so you should make this as convenient and low friction as possible by finding out the best number to reach them at. And then lastly, for initial meetings, 30 minutes is appropriate. I've had people ask for an hour, people ask for 15 minutes. 30 minutes is a good standard. Anything longer than that is a little much to expect for an initial meeting before you know that this person is going to be someone that you're potentially going to work with. Just to kind of show you what this looks like, here's how I do calendar invites. So the company name with the little arrow sign and then their company name. In the where section, the best number to reach them at, and in adding guests, just putting their email address. And I use Google Calendar for this, which works great. If you don't have Google Calendar, I believe Microsoft Outlook has a calendar. There's plenty of other services out there. The screen share tool that I use is called join.me. You can literally find it at join.me.com. They do have a free version. It is very lightweight and effective. And essentially what it does is allows you just to send a link or direct somebody to a link prior to the call or on the call, and they can view your screen without having to download anything. So why should you do a screen share versus sending a deck and asking them to go through it? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward. You want to control where someone is looking during the pitch. So there's two things here that I like to bring up, and one is strategic lingering and greater attention. If there's a particular slide, maybe it's the slide about how much revenue I drove for a past partner. I want to basically just linger on that slide for as long as possible if it makes sense during the pitch, right? I want to make sure that when I'm talking about something, they're not looking at another slide way down like the contact or next steps, and that they're looking at whatever slide is pertinent to what I'm talking about at that moment. So when you provide a screen share, you just have much more control over these elements versus sending them a deck and asking them to go through it at their own time. Because truthfully, most people are pretty impatient and they're just going to scan through it and not even listen to you when you talk because they think they can view the deck on their own terms and get through it faster. So this is why you always want to send a screen share. And also, you don't want to let the deck do the selling before you have a chance to talk. So if you send the deck over, maybe like 5 hours in advance of the meeting, I've seen people go through the deck and decline a meeting because they thought that they understood exactly what your product did after seeing that initial deck. So again, you want to control the pitch. You want to control where someone is looking, when someone is looking, just so that you can convey your message as best as possible and have the most attention on the elements of the pitch that you want to convey at that time. What happens if there's multiple people on the other end and they request a dial-in? so there might not be one phone number to call them on. Well, a great tool is freeconferencecall.com. And basically this service is free, and it provides you a number and unique PIN that you can use to set up a conference line. It's very easy, works great, and is perfect for the situations when there might be people on the other end of the line in different locations or in different offices where there is a dial-in required. So before the call, what I like to do is send them an email with that join.me link 15 minutes before. The email looks like this. So their email with the subject, link to share my screen, and basically denoting, hey, here's a link to share my screen during the call. And once you open up join.me on your computer, you will have a unique URL to provide their screen. And this way, by sending it to them before the call, either A, they have it in their inbox ready to go, and you can basically start join.me, so you can start the screen share when you want. So if they clicked on this and I hadn't started the screen share, they wouldn't be able to see my screen. But sending it to them in their inbox just kind of alleviates the awkwardness of asking them to go to like a very specific, hard to type in URL that might cause some just like awkwardness in the conversation. I find the link is much better, and oftentimes people will be there waiting for you at the time of the call with this open, and you can tell that using join.me. So just sending this type of email 15 minutes before the call is generally a best practice. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the conversational structure of the first meeting with a speculative pitch. So first, and this applies in many senses to a productized pitch as well. So first, you're going to do a brief introduction. What your name is, maybe a little bit about yourself, ask them how they heard about your company. Focus on rapport building. After this, you want to get a little bit of background on their company, as well as give them, just a few sentences on your company, depending upon how familiar they are. And we're going to go over this in more detail in the pitch construction section, but just wanted to go over a little bit at a high level what the structure of the conversation will look like. After this, it's information gathering. So finding out some questions, some answers to questions that you have for their company that's going to determine whether you pitch then or go back, re-architect the pitch, and present them with a more perfect positioning of your solution. And if it turns out that in your information gathering stage, that all of the hypotheses that you had about why they might want to work with you are true, you might want to just go into potential soft pitch there and talk about how you can work together. So let's just dive in a little bit deeper into some of the elements of the conversation structure that we just mentioned. Let's start with information gathering. This is a huge theme of the first meeting in the speculative pitch stage. I think a great example of why this is important can be seen by looking at doctors. So let's say you just broke your arm and you went to the doctor's office to get that fixed. And you go into the office and the doctor doesn't ask you any questions. He just starts bandaging up your ankle. In your head, you're like, why is this person trying to fix my ankle when my arm is broken? This example demonstrates why it's important to ask questions about the problems of the person you're talking to before going into your pitch, right? If somebody cares about driving traffic to their website and I'm trying to tell them about how I can increase engagement on their mobile app, it's not going to be entirely relevant, just like somebody putting a bandage on my ankle when my arm is the thing that's broken. So this is why it's so important before you go in and start pitching your solution to find out exactly what is important and the needs and pains of the person that you're talking to. So let's talk about some specific questions you can ask early on that accomplish this. Number one, what are you focused on at your company, both individually and as a company? So somebody might say, I run business development here, and the things that I'm focused on are developing partnerships through our API that allow us to reach more consumers to drive signups on our website. Okay, that's great. Now, is that your sole focus? Is that the biggest initiative for the company right now? Kind of really like diving in a little bit deeper to that is a great thing to do. And you want to know, again, what the incentives and responsibility of the individual are, as well as what the company goals are within that biz dev function or the product function or whatever it is. When you figure out the goals individually and as a company, you want to ask how they're accomplishing this. So if somebody says, yeah, we're trying to drive new signups and trying to build out an API, okay, cool. So like, can you be a bit more specific? How are you guys currently doing that? Are you reaching out to partners? Are you focusing on delivering more value to consumers, hoping that they tell their friends? Give me a little bit of insight into how you're accomplishing that. And then after they do that, try to understand the metrics that they're measuring their success. So is there a way that you know whether you're doing that successfully? And again, get into the micro and macro scale. So how do you know that this is going well for you as a company? And then as an individual, how are you measured? So are you measured on the number of new signups that you drive, the amount of deals that you do? When you have insight into the incentives on the person on the other side, you can frame the relationship that you're proposing in such a way that moves the needle for their particular incentives, both on the company scale and on the individual scale. And lastly, depending upon whether they bring up the type of relationship that you're potentially going to bring to the table, you want to ask if they've ever thought about trying to do something related to your relationship. So let's say that you're proposing adding additional content through an API relationship to their website to drive engagement. You might say, have you ever thought about trying to drive new user signups by potentially adding more valuable content to the website that incentivizes people to enter in their email address more often because all of a sudden there's this thing that they really want there? You're kind of almost priming and setting up the introduction of your solution at this point. And this is a good last question to ask in this initial information gathering stage. Okay, now if it turns out that all of those questions you asked are in direct alignment with how you potentially proposed working together, then it might make sense for you to go into a soft pitch. Let's go ahead and look at a concrete example just to shine a little bit more color on this. So you're meeting with a friend of a friend at a large newspaper with the idea that you'd like to syndicate your client's data on their website. That is the hypothesis pitch. So we can, for whatever reason, let's just say that menus is the thing you want to put on their website. And their benefit, why they'd want to work with you, would be that this new content would drive additional page views and engagement for existing and new viewers. Okay, so if in the information gathering stage, if they say, you know what, our number one goal right now is driving on-site engagement. That's what we're really focused on, and that's what my particular job is. Then go into the soft pitch. Tell them, well, you know, here's the thing. We have this data that's available through a free API that is going to be a great fit for accomplishing exactly that. And you don't have to go into too many specifics, but you just bring up how you could potentially see the two companies working together. Now, if they say something like, our number one goal right now is just retaining incumbent advertisers. We want the people that are paying us for advertising to buy more ad buys with us, and you know that's what I'm focused on. Then it's probably not the best time for you to pitch right there, especially if you're coming in with a deck and all of these things that are catered towards driving engagement, because that was your initial hypothesis. So just to bring it all back together, in short, if your hypothesis pitch is in alignment with the feedback that you get during the information gathering questions, broach a soft pitch. If not, you want to step back and re-architect the pitch or move on. Let's go through what I mean by soft pitch real quick, just because I think it might be a little bit vague at this point. You can have a deck prepared, but you don't have to if you're going to do a soft pitch. It's more about just having the conversation and painting the picture of what's possible and where things could potentially go. So in the instance that I just mentioned, if it was clear that they're focused on driving engagement, it would be as simple as, well, you know, that's really awesome to hear because we have this particular thing that could accomplish that. Now, I think that the way that it could be accomplished is if we were to potentially do an API relationship that allowed you to put that data on your site so that when people go there, they now have this extra piece of information that they're looking for that's going to keep them there longer and keep them coming back more frequently. Does something like that sound interesting to you? That's as simple as a soft pitch could be. And honestly, that's all you need in many instances to take the conversation to the next step. Now, what happens if the signs say don't pitch? Well, if there's absolutely no indication that they ever want to work with you, then you probably want to move on. But if you think that there's a chance, what you want to do is create the space for you to go ahead and re-architect your pitch so that you can come back with a tighter, more focused pitch that's in alignment with what they care about. You can do this re-architecting on the fly, but it should be determined by whether you have a deck, whether the situation is appropriate, whether you feel comfortable reframing all the relationship that you're going to propose in that moment. Let's go ahead and look at something that you could say or a method to create that space for re-architecting the pitch if you realize that right now might not be the best time to present the relationship you were thinking of. So you might say something like, hey, this has been incredibly useful. Now that I understand what you're trying to accomplish, I have no doubt that we can help you out. Instead of diving into specifics right now, I want to circle back with my team just to get a progress update on something we're working on that is in direct alignment with everything we've talked about. How about we have a quick follow-up conversation next week when I can speak with much more clarity about how I think we can help you out? Do you have your calendar open? So the idea here is just to delay the pitch until you have a chance to go back and tailor it to something that is in greater alignment with all the information that you just found out that this person gave you. Now, you might be saying, well, this person just had a meeting with me. Like, why would they commit to another meeting with me? Honestly, that depends upon how well you're able to build rapport and convey the potential that you might be able to drive a ton of value here. And somebody might say at this point, well, why don't you just tell me right now how you think we can work together? And in that instance, it's best for you to comply with that request and re-architect on the fly. But I always prefer, if you can, creating the space to go back to your team and figure out a way to tailor this towards something that's more in alignment with what this person has proposed. And I think that you're going to get a higher compliance on this if you go ahead and talk about how you need to circle back with your team to get an update on something that is going to be in more alignment with that than, hey, I just need to go back and think about this some more. Make it more of a higher company priority in the sense of, there's something that's being worked on that could be a better fit for this relationship. Cool. So at this point, you've had the information gathering. You kind of understand where this person is and what's important to them. You might have even done a soft pitch. Now, there's some things that you still need to take into consideration before moving forward and potentially trying to actualize this relationship with this partner. First question you have to ask yourself, is this relationship repeatable? So you don't want to do a bunch of work for the initial relationship if you don't think this can be replicated over and over again with other meaningful partners. Again, the goal of business development is scalable growth, and that is achieved by creating a certain type of relationship that can be repeated for all the partners that it makes sense for. Number two, will our companies work well together? So is there a culture fit, both on an individual level and on a company level? If this company is just somebody that doesn't care about the same things that we care about, that could be a stressful relationship. And again, for this first partner, you're setting the tone for all BD relationships moving forward. So it's important to understand whether the companies will work well together. Number three, is this potentially a time waster? So are these people that are going to take this relationship seriously? Are they going to want to get it done quickly? Or is this somebody that I'm going to have a lot of speculative conversations with and nothing's really going to go anywhere? It's important to understand this. And There's certain things you can do to identify and avoid time wasters. First thing you can look at is, what is the company history? Do they have a company history of taking a long time to get things done? And ways you can find out whether this is actually true is asking friends who might have a relationship with this company, whether that's the case in their experience, or even going to people that they're currently partnered with or working with, and just having a candid conversation. Whether what's your experience been with like these guys? Are they fast? Do they care about implementing quickly? Another thing you can do is ask about the process. So ask the person you're talking to, what is typically the process for things getting done like this relationship that I just proposed? If it seems like there's 30 different people that they need to get compliance from, well, it might take a long time. Or if somebody says, hey, I'm actually the decision maker, I just need to get approval from my legal team after we determine this is something we want to do, then that's a good sign. So these are things you can do to identify and avoid time wasters. In the context of identifying time wasters, it's also important to screen the individual that you're talking to. So does that initial stakeholder seem like a doer? Are they the type of person that wants to get things done and does that frequently at their company? If they're not, try to find someone else within the organization that you can get involved. And I call this herding the deal makers. You want to be working with and aligning your relationship with people that actually can get things done and have the propensity to get things done. And you'll figure out who these people are the further that you engage in a conversation with the company. So if you see flags that somebody is a time waster, here are a few things that you can do. 1, run. Again, you do not want to waste your time with people that are never going to get things done. 2, assign it to someone junior. So if this is a company that you still want to work with eventually, but you just don't think anything's going to get done in the near term, if you have a junior person, you can get that person involved and have them just gradually warm the relationship until something might eventually get done. 3, keep it on the burner. There's nothing wrong with just continuing the dialogue, but you want to do it in such a way that you're not wasting a ton of time on it. And again, the reason that I think that you should take this limited investment mindset by either not spending time on it, assigning to someone junior, or making just a priority to not invest time in it is that time is a startup's most valuable asset. So you want to be extremely protective of it by only spending time on things that are going to move the needle for your company.